The cafe hid just beyond a bend in the highway, set a little back from the road. No proper name, just a modest sign over the door, Cafe and Billiards. The building itself didn't draw the eye. Take that curve at speed and you'd miss it. Customers didn't stop often and stayed even less. The menu was basically nothing. Some buns, chips, on a good day dumplings. True, the little bar offered a surprisingly wide range of liquor, but drivers grabbing a quick lunch before getting back behind the wheel weren't there for the booze. The lack of clientele didn't bother the owners. If anything, it helped. Money here was made a very different way. If someone urgently needed big trouble, Cafe and Billiards was the perfect place to start looking. Jamil, the smiling, dark-skinned bartender who seemed to have nothing to do, was in fact watching the guests closely. If someone pulled up in a pricey foreign car and looked well off, Jamil would slip away to the billiards room and, with a couple of indifferent-looking regulars, decide yes or no. If yes, he'd come back, wait 5 or 10 minutes, and send the guest a coffee or a juice on the house. By the time the guest was invited to the billiards room or the manager's office on some harmless pretext, he was already under the influence of a truth drug with a nasty side effect, and all that remained was to ask him in detail where and with whom he lived, what valuables and how much cash he kept at home, the exact address. Once the victim had given up everything, they let him leave. A car would trail him, with one of the billiards players behind the wheel and a shaved-headed bruiser named Ildar riding shotgun. They'd tuck in behind the victim. After a while, the drug would hit its final phase, and the driver would pull over if he managed to react before blacking out. Sometimes the trip ended in a crash. In those cases, the escort car simply drove past, knowing they had plenty of time. They didn't run operations often, but Jamil's careful selection of marks more than made up for slow periods. The marks themselves, those lucky enough not to crash within a couple of miles, couldn't later remember stopping at the cafe at all. The drug caused memory loss. So the owner's business at Cafe and Billiards had drawn precisely no attention. Accidents on that stretch of road happened often enough without their help. On the last day of August, the weather seemed offended at people. Hard gusts of wind raised clouds of dust across the highway, slashing visibility. Leaden clouds spit a few first drops now and then, but the rain hadn't started. By nightfall, forecasters promised a downpour and winds strengthening to hurricane force. Mikhail Chernyak reached for the remote and turned the TV down. "How about we close early today?" he asked his buddies. "Hey, Urets, what do you say? Hit the bathhouse, bring some girls." Urets Yuri Malakov was the youngest in the crew. He'd joined recently, recommended by a local crime boss who took a cut from Cafe and Billiards as a tax. Before that, Malakov worked security at a city casino where said boss partied nightly with his girlfriends. On his last shift, Urets savaged a random passerby, somehow mistaking him for a hitman, and lost his job on the spot. His resume impressed: black belt in karate, airborne forces, a school of extreme driving, and other useful skills. His flair for pointless cruelty didn't bother anyone at Cafe and Billiards, and only Chernyak sincerely lamented that the new kid still couldn't learn to play American pool. He scattered balls all over the hall. "I'd wait a little," Malakov objected, lighting a cigarette. "Maybe a sucker rolls in, and then bathhouse girls." "Look at that, Yasal. The kid's itching to shake down suckers," snorted Gayar, a 30-year-old with a gangster's habits. He'd started in the Nizhny Tagil crew, where behind his back they called him the sadist's harem. Later he moved to Moscow, met Misha Chernyak there. Chernyak swore he came from a line of Stavropol Cossacks, which is why he wore the honorary nickname Yesol. "Good. If he's itching, it means he remembers the job," Chernyak said in a mock-genial tone. He could act genial, but his perpetually bristling mustache and bulging eyes gave away his rage. Chernyak was usually the first to propose little pranks on customers, after which the local precinct received statements about bodily harm and even rapes committed at Cafe and Billiards. But the gang had solid protection, and those complaints went nowhere. A dust-caked sea-green Renault pulled into the lot. A short man in a gray jacket hesitated a second, eyeing the cafe and billiards sign, then thumbed the central lock, pocketed his keys, and headed for the door. Ildar, the muscle-keeping watch in the duty car, gave the visitor a once-over. Judging by the look of him, no big score here, too nondescript. And a jacket, really? Sure, it's windy, but he's not walking. He's in a car. City schmuck. Ildar squinted at the Renault's plates, but they were buried under a thick layer of grime, as if the car had driven out of a bog. When the man vanished inside, something dark and smoking started dripping from under the radiator onto the asphalt. I'm telling you, the Stavropol Cossacks will beat the Chechens out for good. A debate had sprung up in the billiards room about the fighting qualities of Cossacks versus Chechen crews. Naturally, Chernyak the Yesel took the Cossack side. The authorities don't let him show what they can do, otherwise they'd have sent all those Churkas back to the mountains to herd sheep. Sure, Geyer nodded sagely. Tell that to Mahmud, he'll get a laugh. Mahmud was the very boss who taxed cafe and billiards, Chechen by nationality. I will tell him, Chernyak flared. Sick of that black-assed roof, like we couldn't live without him. Then you can deal with the district prosecutor's office yourself about your exploits. They'll pin a separate charge on you for shooting strays. Go to, you know where, Mr. Morality? Sadist's harem, my ass. Mahmud's got more fighters than we do, Geyer said, unoffended. I'm not keen on a shootout here in the middle of the night. No worries. We'll put Uretz up against them, see who beats who. Uretz stared out the window, sullenly silent. For all his frostbitten bravado, he wouldn't cross Mahmud. Smiling as always, Jamil the bartender walked into the billiards room. Guys, looks like we've got a candidate, he reported. Yeah? Yesal rose and peered into the hall. Which one? Because of the weather, the number of customers had multiplied. The one at the back table. Pfft, Yesal waved him off after squinting. That? The one in the jacket? And who is he? You figure some secret oligarch? No, yeah, his look is lame, but guys, he just paid for coffee and his wallet is stuffed with cash, about to pop. Listen, let's at least take his money. No objections. When the visitor refused a free on-the-house coffee, Jamil thought he'd misheard. He repeated the offer, but Grey Jacket only shook his head. So Jamil grabbed a couple bottles of beer for show and headed to the billiards room. Grey Jacket watched him go with indifference, took a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, and set it on the table. If he doesn't want it, it's not meant to be, Geyer concluded. You're not going to force-feed him your poison, right? People are clearing out, Uretz reported, but he sits like he's glued there. We'll close up and press him, he'll hand it all over, and let him complain. We never even saw him. The kid's talking sense, Yesal agreed. But keep it quiet. Jamil, bring him upstairs. We'll sort him out there. But first, load a bottle. Yo, someone wants a word with you, Jamil said to the man in the gray jacket. The man looked up. Who? Grandpa so-and-so, okay? Come on, I'll take you. And what's this about? Don't ask. Serious people are talking. And if I leave? Grey Jacket glanced at the door, but the shaved bodybuilder was already locking it from the inside after seeing out the last guests. He slid the bolt, leaned on the door, arms crossed, drilling the remaining customer with a heavy stare. The way out was cut off. No leaving yet, the bartender said. You'll leave when it's time. Grey Jacket rose slowly. All right, he nodded. Following the bartender through the billiards room, he climbed a wooden staircase to the second floor and stepped into a small room with the curtains drawn. Yesal was already waiting. In the billiards hall, Geyer and Churetz stubbed out their cigarettes and headed up too. Ildar peeled off the door and turned up the stereo. Have a seat, you're our guest, Yesal's sharp grin said everything but welcome. How about a shot of cognac to get acquainted? We've got a long talk ahead. Grey Jacket glanced back. Two more had come in. The bartender slipped away to let the real professionals work. Geyer and Uretz edged him toward the table until he had to sit with his back to the wall, equally far from the door and the curtained window. He stayed utterly neutral, showing not the slightest worry, and a thought hit Geyer. What if he's a foreigner? Maybe he has no clue what's about to happen. Once they'd majorly screwed up with an out-of-towner turned out to be an advisor to the American ambassador. Mom said that had to be the last time. Gurgling cognac into a glass, Yesall filled it halfway and shoved it toward Gray Jacket. Help yourself. I'm driving, the man reminded him. Relax. Traffic cops aren't animals. Slip 'em $100 and roll on. You got cash on you? Gray Jacket shrugged and took the glass. He knocked the cognac back in a few swallows. His face didn't change, as if it were seltzer. Uretz's face did change. Master of sport though he was, his drinking skills were about as good as his pool game. Whoa, pro, huh? Yesall grunted. All right, tell us about yourself. What should I say? Who you are, where you're from, what you're doing here. Some random guy shows up, no idea why. Maybe you're a stray, or you'll mess up our girls. We're listening. Jamil, did you load him horse tranquilizer or what? Geyer hissed at the bartender, rushing the bar. Come on, like a pharmacy. He's not out yet. No, you screw up the dose? Dose is fine, Jamil faltered. Even a little heavy. Then come look for yourself. He's sitting there sober and we won't get squat out of him. Did he at least say anything about himself? The bartender blinked. Uh-huh, said. I'm a game show host, like he hosts games. As in Wheel of Fortune, on TV. Hell if I know. Ildar keeps lookout, you come with me. Outside, the wind moaned. The open vent brought a distant roll of thunder. Last year we had a touring pro here. Did apartments? Geyer reminisced darkly. At first we thought he was normal, looked like an intellectual. Well, we broke his arms and legs. You've seen our guard, Ildar? He's a Sambo champ. I figured, Gray Jacket nodded, rolling the glass in his palms. He still wasn't nervous, a weird thing, not to mention that half an hour ago he'd taken a slam dose of truth drug. What did you figure? What did you figure? Uretz snapped. You think you're clever? You a cop by any chance? Geyer elbowed his hot-headed colleague. Listen, man, he said, waiting for Malakoff to relax his muscles. You're either playing dumb or you're just an idiot. Spell it out so we get it. What do you mean, I host games? On TV? With Yakubovich or what? Or what, without Yakubovich? Gray Jacket answered, looking somewhere between Uretz and Geyer. Footsteps sounded on the stairs. The door opened and the bartender walked in. So the cognac's bad, huh? He joined the psychological treatment from the doorway. Who's complaining, this guy? I never said anything about the cognac, Gray Jacket retorted. Free vinegar tastes sweet. Not a foreigner, thought Geyer. Careful, or you'll file a complaint with the health inspector. Jamil kept smiling, but the smile had a corpse light in it. I've got a proposal, Gray Jacket said suddenly. I can run a game right now. Uretz lurched to his feet. Listen up, host, he began. Thunder cracked outside, deafening. It felt like lightning hit the sill. Yesall, Geyer, Uretz, and Jamil flinched and looked at the window, catching a long violet flash through the curtains. When they looked back at the guest, he was still lounging against the wall, only now he had a pistol in his hand, and under his open jacket was an unbuttoned holster. What? What's that you've got there? Yesall managed, eyes glued to the gun. With his left hand, Gray Jacket steadied his right wrist and drew a neat arc in the air with the barrel. An invitation to play, he said, and for the record, your cognac is real poison, he added with a smile, glancing at the bartender. Sit down. Russian roulette, huh? Geyer sneered. Thought you'd play that with a revolver. Russian roulette is for degenerates. What we'll do is much more interesting. You may want to stop playing real fast, but I can promise one thing clearly. Nobody's going to be bored. Sit, he warned Uretz, who'd leaned forward without thinking. Uretz froze. All right, here are the rules. I'll be asking you questions. All of you, round robin. If I don't like someone's answer, that player's out of the game because I'll shoot him. And the winner is whoever's still alive at the end of our little quiz. The room went silent. Only rain drummed on the wall. Listen, man, Yesall said darkly. I don't know who you are or what stunt you're pulling, but keep in mind you're not dealing with riffraff here. These are real guys with authority. Gray Jacket pressed his thin lips in disapproval. Gentlemen, You're all grown men. I think deep down you already understand that the age of real guys just ended. Now you're simply those who answer questions. The game had begun. There was nothing to be done about it. For the first question, Grey Jacket looked them over. For the first question, we'll turn to our bartender. Let's welcome him with applause. No one moved. Gentlemen, the fake cheery note in his voice slipped into gentle reproach. Please observe the protocol. You don't want our game to end before it begins, do you? Geyer clapped weakly a few times. Yasal joined in reluctantly. Uretz remained motionless, just twisting with anger. Better. My question for you, Mr. Bartender. Listen carefully. Do you think pink hash marks on white are a good color choice? Jamil choked. I don't know. I'm not a fucking designer. Unsatisfactory. Take this seriously. Well, I'd say it's a bad choice. Looks like pajamas. The joke died in his throat when he realized this lunatic could easily shoot him in the head. Thunder rolled outside. All right, second try, but we'll accept it, Grey Jacket said. Next contestant, Yuri, right? My question, who are the extreme types in your opinion? Uretz scowled. Answer him, idiot, Geyer nudged him. I don't know, Uretz growled. What is this? Grey Jacket marveled. Gentlemen, you show up to play and you're not ready for the simplest questions? Yuri, I'm waiting. The pistol tilted toward Malakoff. He jerked. Extreme types are people who don't get enough adrenaline. They like skydive, ride fast bikes. All that? Enough? He swallowed, not looking at the host. Not very substantive, but you got the gist. I'll count it this time. Pull yourself together, Yuri. You? The barrel's vector swung, and a dead chill ran through Geyer. Geyer. Let's clap, gentlemen. Thank you. Geyer, tell us, does the calculated braking distance always match the real one? They exchanged worried looks. Sorry, I didn't get— Oh, I get it. About cars. No, of course not. Not always. Geyer squeezed his eyes shut and forced them open. That's just not real. Depends on weather, on traction, on— Thank you. Accepted. And now, yes all, right? Yes all dipped his head, sullen. He refused to believe any of this. Would you say naivety is an abstract notion? Yasal opened his mouth, but Grey Jacket wasn't done. Keep your voice down, and be aware, if your pal downstairs decides he's needed up here, he'll have to join us. Given his modest intellect, he won't be playing long. So, Yasal, is naivety an abstraction? I think no. Naivety is lack of experience and a tendency to trust, something like that. Brilliant. You surprised me, Mr. Yasal. I had a worse opinion of you. Gentlemen, congratulations. You've all cleared round one. No one responded. You're absolutely right. Not time to celebrate. No one's out, but no one's won either. So we continue. Mr. Bartender, scientists claim the body's true capabilities can surface in emergencies, say, in mortal danger. Do you agree? I do, Jamil said grimly. His smile had long since left his face. He was thinking that after graduating from the Patrice Lumumba Institute's language department, he should have gone home to Turkey. Ho ho, Grey Jacket chirped. A real connoisseur, but perhaps not a real bartender? Yuri. Is it possible, looking someone in the eyes, to tell with a fair degree of certainty whether they're lying or telling the truth? Yeah, Uretz mumbled. In all his life, even the army, he'd never stared down a gun barrel. Some people can. The FSB trains them with psychologists. Matches reality. Geyer. A very simple question. Just maximum honesty. Are you enjoying our game? Geyer ran through the possible answers and outcomes as fast as he could. No, he admitted at last. An honest answer is the right answer, Grey Jacket proclaimed. Your turn, Yasal. What's better, unstable vertical or stable horizontal? Yasal understood there was nowhere to go. For any of them. They could only sit and answer pointless questions. He racked his brain trying to place this freak not a cop, not a gangster, not No one. "Stable. Horizontal's better," he answered quickly. If fate meant a bullet in the head now, then fate it was. "Counted," Gray Jacket nodded. "Round 2 complete, gentlemen, but don't relax." No one even tried. If anything, the tension rose until the air itself hummed like high-voltage lines strung under the ceiling. "In a few minutes, we'll move to round 3, Gray Jacket said. "First, let's sum up. From your answers, we can sketch a little picture of the world, can't we? We know pink on white is ugly. A driver may or may not have enough braking distance. Still, if he's not an extreme type or a crazed biker, he won't be speeding too much at night, agreed. You also claim you can learn to spot lies by looking someone in the eye, but inexperienced, fundamentally naive people can't do such telepathy. Meanwhile, mortal danger can trigger unusual physical abilities. Now, let's ask, what about mental abilities? Mr. Bartender, what's 19 times 365 plus 2? The problem caught Jamil off guard. His hand went to his breast pocket. "Calculators aren't allowed by our rules," Gray Jacket said with a cool smile. "Then hold on. A minute. I'm getting it." Jamil hadn't multiplied 3-digit by 2-digit numbers in his head for a long time, and he was in such a panic that even if the result were written down for him, he couldn't have added 2. Just a sec. Cold sweat beat at his face. "It'll be 1,000, no, 2,900, and plus 2. "Looky, you're hesitating a second time, so you're out of the game," Gray Jacket said, all metal. The shot blended with the next thunderclap. The 9mm slug punched through Jamil's skull and buried itself in the wall, spattering it with blood. The Turk toppled back and sprawled on the floor. The players froze into stone. Gray Jacket puffed the smoking barrel. The room filled with the stink of powder. "Note, gentlemen," he said, pointing at the wall's white silk screen. "Red slashes on white are truly ugly." "Motherfucker," Yasal breathed. "Do you even know who you just dropped?" "By the rules, players only answer questions. They don't ask the host any. Nevertheless, the correct answer the eliminated player couldn't give is 6,937. Yuri, is 6,937 a lot or a little?" Yuritz turned from the table, fighting a heave. He vomited on the corpse. "Yuri." "Yeah." Yuritz wiped his mouth with his hand. "It depends on what... I don't know what that is. If it's dollars, then probably not that much. And if it's not dollars," the host needled, "not that much either." "Correct! Yuri, quiz shows are your true calling, and I'm proud of you. Gayar, I see you're upset. Try to calm down. Are you Muslim?" Yeah. Some say there's only one God, Muslims and Christians, just call him by different names. Can you recite a prayer right now for God to keep you from answering wrong? Can you?" "I can." "You have 30 seconds. Gray Jacket stretched out his left arm, a watch face sliding from his sleeve. "Time starts now, Mr. Gayar." Gayar was already whispering silently, fingers laced. His lips, purple with fear, barely moved. He prayed and heard the second hand run. "Your half-minute is up," Gray Jacket said. His voice slit the mortuary stillness like a pathologist's knife into a belly. "So, Gayar, did you say a prayer that should protect you from error?" Gayar nodded mutely. He braced for a trick question. None came. Instead, Gray Jacket rose in a flash. His wrist dropped at an impossible angle, and the bullet went down almost vertical. Gayar howled and toppled. The howl cut off. He writhed, gulping at air. Gray denim below his belt buckle darkened fast with blood. Yuritz burst into sobs and bit his own hand. "What are you doing, you freak?" Yisal rasped. "What are you doing?" "A small penalty," Gray Jacket explained thoughtfully. "I asked if the contestant could say a prayer that would keep him from error. He said he could. That itself was the error. A forgivable one, though. He's not off the quiz, and sit him back up." "Sit him back up? Sit? Him? Back? You shot his balls off? How's he supposed to sit now?" "You forgot about the body's hidden capabilities. Unless you want more penalties, the player must take his seat." Completely stunned, Geyer didn't hear. Through the roiling crimson fog, he saw only Uretz and Yesal bending over him. "Hang in there, brother," Yesal said. "Now it's going to hurt worse." "Please, a little faster," Grey Jacket urged. A minute later, Geyer was back in his chair. His face had turned waxy. His eyes were clouded with shock. "Let's continue," the host said coolly, as if nothing had happened. "Mr. Yesal." "Hi, sounds funny, like we're in a Cossack regiment. The next one will seem hard, but answer quickly and thoughtfully. Mr. Geyer has just proved by example that either there's no God or he's selectively deaf. He didn't help Mr. Geyer, though the man badly needed help." Geyer swayed, almost face-planting on the table. Yesal held him up. "So here's my question. If God doesn't hear, who else can answer a prayer?" "You? You're him?" Yesal whispered. Violet light flared behind the curtains. For a heartbeat, the host's face seemed to peel back, exposing an icy mask beneath. The glow died. Yesal crossed himself hurriedly. "Lord, have mercy," he muttered. "Lord, have mercy on me. In the name of your son." "What if there's no God at all?" Grey Jacket suggested, silky soft. Yesal stopped muttering and crossing himself. Uretz gnawed his hand, choking on tears. He hadn't seen the face change in the lightning, and Geyer hadn't made a sound, but he was barely conscious. "Gentlemen, we'll be back in the studio very soon," Grey Jacket announced. "We have only 3 contestants left on Team Player, but don't worry, only one will make the finish. And now, a commercial break. I'll show you a short but marvelous spot, a masterpiece of video advertising." He paused for a few seconds. When he spoke again, a 3-dimensional image rose over the table with his first word. "A late night, very dark, no stars. A car glides down the highway. In the car, 2 men and a girl. The girl is lying very awkwardly on the back seat. She's in a deep faint and feels nothing. But before this night, the girl had time to feel plenty. For several hours she kneeled, handcuffed to the headboard. Appreciate these magnificent handcuffs, gentlemen. Do you see them? Fine steel, narrow bracelets tied around the thinnest wrists. The victim pulls, but handcuffs, gentlemen. They hold her securely. She only scrapes off her skin, leaving bloody abrasions. The victim's skin is tender and white close up, please. Don't you think these handcuffs are worth owning? She can't run, but she screams too loud, and that annoys the ones who locked her up. They beat her, she cries and calls someone by name. Naive thing, she thinks she'll be saved. Soon she faints, and then happy handcuff owners. They take turns having sex with her. No, they aren't raping her. She isn't resisting, so she must not mind. That's what these wonderful cuffs can do, gentlemen. Back to the highway. The car brakes. The 2 men drag the girl out and lay her on the shoulder. That's where they leave her. They climb in, make a U-turn, and drive the other way. The rain starts. Time for the wipers. We see the girl again, gentlemen. Drops drum her face. She opens her eyes and instantly remembers everything after the handcuffs. She gets up and walks into the dark. She can barely stay on her feet. She wants to fall and lie still, but she's afraid they'll take her again, and she needs to get as far as she can. Except, gentlemen, she'd be better off staying down. She walks into the dark and strays too far from the shoulder toward the second lane. She remembers what happened, though she's forgotten her name. She thinks once, long ago, they called her Lisochka, and now she whispers a blurred prayer. "Dear God, I'm asking you, please, you're kind. Make it so it doesn't hurt Lisochka so much. Lisochka hurts so much, dear God. Make it all go away." Hear how sweet her voice is, gentlemen. Lisochka is very young. Just the day before yesterday, she turned 19. Before the handcuffs, she lived 6,935 days and 2 more. But the rain grows louder, and through the noise, God can't tell what some Lisochka wants. He has an excellent painkiller for cases like this. The road behind her blooms with twin bars of light. The tires scream. But the driver doesn't have enough braking distance. Braking distance, gentlemen, and the pain is gone. We're back in the studio. Our airtime is limited, so straight to the questions. Geyer. Why? That night when you came back here to the cafe, did you bury the handcuffs behind the garage? Are you ashamed of them? Bastard, Geyer croaked. Incorrect. Grey Jacket sighed and fired. Geyer collapsed with a hole in his throat. He still had dying to do, but not right away. One more out, Grey Jacket said. Gentlemen, he nodded graciously to Yuritz and Yesal. We'll look for a winner between you two. Yuri, you're first. What was Lysochka's real name? Liuda, Yuritz moaned. Lyudmila, Lysochka's school nickname. Yuri, you know everything. Yesal, ready? Yesal lowered his eyes. He was afraid lightning would flare again, and he'd see that icy mask behind the peeled face. Yesal, what comes from nowhere and goes to nowhere? Take your time to think it through. What comes from nowhere and goes to nowhere? Yesal shook his head hard. Go ahead and shoot me, he shouted. But if there's no God, you shouldn't exist either. Grey Jacket squinted with contempt. Isn't it a bit late to think about God? He asked. Shouldn't that have happened earlier? Either way, the answer doesn't count, and you, Yesal, are out of the game. Yesal's hand flew to his brow, puzzled why moving was suddenly so hard. He clamped his palm on the hole in front as brain spilled from the shattered back of his skull. You took me for the devil? Grey Jacket asked, looking into his glazing eyes. No, I've never even seen him. I'm only retribution. That's the right answer. I came from nowhere and will go to nowhere. No one will ever know I was here. I always come, and I always come on time, even when everyone thinks I'm hopelessly late. The storm quit. The last drops drummed the glass. Only Yuret's sobs broke the silence. What are you sniveling for? Grey Jacket asked him. Be glad. You won. Yuretz looked up. He saw a man in a gray jacket. He also had the feeling he was alone on the second floor, aside from 3 corpses. 2, really. Geyer was dying, not dead yet. Thinking of Lysochka? Grey Jacket asked, understanding. She was a good girl, wasn't she? No extreme type and never jumped with a chute. She was scared to ride with you, what did you call it? To a party with friends. But she trusted you, and you looked her in the eyes and said it would be great. So she agreed. She didn't even tell her parents where she was going. She loved you, Yuretz, and you used her to pay your dues. Yes, an entry fee for the privilege of joining this restaurant business. I didn't want to, Yuretz said dully. I told them. She's so naive, easy to set up. Easy, Mark. Let's pick someone else. Right, and that Chernyak was it. Told you, the more naive the better. Disassociate and bring the girl. I didn't do anything. It was them, Jamil and Geyer and Yesal. Geyer, he was first to hit her. I only brought her. Of course. You did nothing. You only brought her. She called to you and you didn't help, but she believed you till the end. That's why you win. Forgot to say you get a prize. A prize? Yuretz repeated, blank. A prize, Grey Jacket nodded, holstering the pistol. You'll outlive your friends. I hope life treats you pleasantly. He stood up and, without another glance at Yuretz, left the room. Downstairs, Ildar, faithfully guarding the entry, was getting antsy. They were taking too long up there. And this storm, any minute more customers might show. He wouldn't open, of course, but better no one lingered outside. Ildar started to imagine the thunder was coming from upstairs. He was about to go check when the wooden stairs creaked and the out-of-towner in the gray jacket came down. He stopped on the last step, and a long, distorted shadow slid across the rug. Instinctively, Ildar blocked his path. How's life? The man shrugged. Not bad. Looks like the weather's clearing, huh? Ildar was about to answer when his voice failed him. Only 2 steps separated him from Grey Jacket, and a question popped into his head. Who is this? And where are the guys? Yeah, the elements really let it rip, Grey Jacket went on evenly. You think the house held up? It's standing. The house is... Ildar faltered, retreating from the strange stranger. Wrong answer, the man said. The house burned down. Only ruins left. Where? Ildar turned, thinking he'd see out the window what had collapsed where, but saw only an empty lot. The sea-green Renault was gone. Gray Jacket shot him point blank and, stepping over the body, headed for the exit. Fire trucks blinked blue beacons, baffled, but there was nothing to put out. The flames had died on their own. In 2 hours, they pulled 4 charred bodies and 1 mutilated but living young man from the wreckage of the collapsed cottage. The EMT said they'd save him, but it would be better if he died with the rest, and the firefighters understood what he meant. But the ambulance crew had no right to euthanize patients, so they hauled the guy into the city, to the hospital. Together with the rescue team, the firefighters tried to find other people who knew how many had been inside when the cafe suddenly caved in at the height of the storm. A long-haul trucker passing just then swore lightning hit the cottage roof. No one saw the shape that shimmered among the smoking rubble, moving lightly and freely as if nothing could hinder it. Only when it reached the edge of the cordon perimeter did the fire chief notice a gray flicker amid the orange suits. He stripped off a glove and rubbed smoke-stung eyes, but the vision vanished into the night. He thought, maybe that's how the souls of the dead leave the place they died. He drove the thought away quickly,